You know, we had 4 trains come in town, 2 in the morning, passenger trains. Wow. Going each direction. They would meet here because then they could split off. We had a bus from Fond du Lac. People could get off the train and then go to Fond du Lac by bus. And it was also a mail carrier. You know, they would take the mail into Mayville, all the little towns up to Fond du Lac. In the morning, he would come in the morning, and at night we would jump on that bus and go to the movie in Mayville. So it would cost a dime or something to get on that bus, and Sam, the bus driver, would take us up, and my folks would come pick us up. There's usually 2 kids from town.
Well, the depot there, the people just get in there when you catch the train. And there were 2 trains in the morning and 2 trains at night. They'd go up to Columbus. I'd go with my mother and Butch Miller's mother used to catch the train here in the morning. They go down to Milwaukee. By 4 o'clock they had to get on the train in Milwaukee because it came back down there. They could only shop all day. You know, that's what they used to go shopping. There was no other way. Women that couldn't drive or anything, you know, that's called it a train here and away they went, you know.
I see.
Then you had a turntable there. Just remember, the train would drive on there, they put the engine on there, then they turn it around and they had the other way, see? And they turned it up, they called it the turntable, yeah.
Remember the turntable in back where we would turn the trains around? That was right in back of our, we tore down, there's a picture of the feed mill, or of the grain holding building. That we tore down and built a new one, but right in back of that was the turntable, and they would, you know, the trains would come in facing north, and if they, now the diesels, they don't have to do that once the diesels came in, but the coal-fired, they would put them on there, and then either they had a mule or they push it around by hand, and then at the end they must have had steam that would just turn the engine on. Right across the road was a grocery store. There was 3 grocery stores, and I don't know how many bars, 5. Doc Quackenbush's office was upstairs. The hotel was still run.
Then was Dr. Quackenbush was upstairs, and then there was Connect's store.
A clothing store, Mrs. Peters had the store, and Dutton had the store in the corner. He was having groceries and stuff. Then there was a tavern.
Co-op had a store on the west side of the street. Yeah, and there was a hardware store. There was Kelly and Dick. They operated there for a while. They had their electric store there too. And Corpse Falkman, he sold, that was Irvin. He was known as Corpse. Because he was the, well, he had the undertaking business.
It was a common thing that you had a funeral home with a furniture store. That you would sell furniture plus having a funeral home. That was the end thing, you know, that was very popular.
First comes the nice building. That was Falkman's furniture store, and then come the garage. Sperling's moved in there after a while. They had their plumbing business.
And Steve Breitenbach had a hardware store or something, you know. And Pat Redland's garage, and
Oh, you had a not a car dealer, but a truck. We bought our trucks from Scharf, I think, was running it then, and then I know Jack Kitzinger bought it, and he bought it and ran it, and then he went in the bank. But yeah, we bought our international trucks down here on the corner.
And the Dylan Tyson's baker shop, yeah. Yeah, my grandpa would make pancakes, you know, every morning before we went to school, the kids, us kids. And I'd run down here, but one of us would run down and get the bakery, donuts and stuff. Made them every morning, made them fresh. Yeah, Dylan Tyson's baker store, yeah.
Well, the shoe store, there was a shoe store. What should I say? He did too sell shoes, but he also fixed shoes. We had a lot of, shoes fixed there by him.
And Herman Lang, did they tell you about Herman Lang? No? Here's the Stallmacher Lumber Company. The post office is here, and back here, that's where the railroad track runs through and everything else. And the farmers would bring their calves and their cows and their sheep, anything they want, ship them to Milwaukee. Then Herman Lang would come here Monday mornings, and then he had a couple trucks went out, they picked up by farmers too, besides, Then he'd bring the cattle back, then he'd put them in this holding pen for a while, and when got everything, everybody got all the stuff here, then by the way to bring them out of there and load them right on the train car. And all Milwaukee to the train.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And Miller's Meat Market, they did the same thing. A lot of times they'd haul cattle in Milwaukee with a truck.
And then there was a Geezy, had a harness shop. That was between Miller's butcher shop and grocery store and the insurance building.
Where the co-op is now, a guy by the name of Man put a building up there, a little shack. It was not much of a shack. And he sold Skelly gas. Skelly, Skelly gas. All he did was sell gas, no fix, no cars, or nothing. And then Wimpy Gans bought it from him.
Blacksmiths, we had 2 blacksmiths in town. That was unusual, one back by the cheese factory and then one right next to our lumberyard. That was there a long time. The one in front, the one on Main Street. Ted Dennis.
And then Bill Green's had the bowling alley, and then the mother had a little drugstore, Viola Bill Green. And then there was another tavern. They had a beauty shop. Dorothea and Cal had the beauty shop. And then after a while, Mrs. Dooman, she was running the beauty shop.
And then the last year now, Webb Air, they're filling a television deal in there. You sell televisions.
Laundromat, we had a laundromat where the lumber yard was. Reesters did that.
Shopping. And then right across the street here, I don't know if people know it, there was a drive-in right across the street here.
What do you mean a drive-in?
Like A&W Root Beer. It was, I can't remember the A&W, I think about the A&W Root Beer, but little drive-in was right across the street. I remember 4 schools were there yet. There's 4 schools, yeah. They didn't have it real long. And for a while there was a fence around there. Della didn't want nothing on there. But they were funny people, at that time. Yeah, that was quite a deal there too.
Well, of course, the feed mill and the lumber yard, that was the main one. That was at the time first it was Speedy Hum from...
The feed mill?
Yeah, the feed mill.
Well, it was purchased by my grandfather in 1929, and my dad came and was manager of it until I got rid of it in 1976 or 5 or somewhere back in there. It was a feed mill, fertilizer, coal back then. Just a feed mill.
So farmers brought their stuff into you?
Farmers would come up with their, I remember trucks would be lined up maybe 10, 12, 15 on Main Street waiting to get their feed ground.
Always had lumber at the mill
Yeah.
that you could buy too.
Lumber and roofing, road roofing, you know, any building material, insulation, doors and windows.
And so, did you have a separate warehouse for that then, or?
Yeah, well, there was a whole bunch of warehouses down in back of there was coal sheds, we had maybe 5 different kinds of coal, and that'd come in by train car loads, and you'd unload it and then haul it out to the farmers or out to the public. And then we had a big warehouse with moldings and doors, windows, insulation, whatever, anything in the building. Nails. Had two trucks, a dump truck and a pickup truck. Small operation compared to today. Now everything's done with forklifts and
Yeah.
Julius Schultz was a big man in town. I mean, a very high class man. And he started the Herman Mutual, and he had actually there, after he moved from downtown and from his office, he went up to North Main, and he built a big building there, and it was high class. He had a lot of people working for him, and he also he built a big 5 family apartment house for his workers, that when he hired people that they lived there, if they were from further away, that they had a place to live. And then he also served meals. They had weddings, and they had every year at Christmas time, he had a big meal for his employees. And he did have a turkey farm not too far from that area too, on East Avenue. It was a big, from the apartment building to up to Moldenhauer's farm was his land. And then he decided to lay out that land where he had the turkey farm into lots for houses. So he decided, when Milwaukee was doing all these road constructions, when they had to move houses, he would buy a couple of those up and bring them out here. The movers would bring them out, set them on the foundation, and it was amazing how nothing, they brought them in one piece, and we lived in one of those houses. We rented it from him. So in all, on East Avenue, there's 4 to 5 houses that he brought out from Milwaukee, and they're all sold, and people are living in them. And they also called that the Turkey Shit Avenue. Oh, you live on Turkey Shit Avenue? Yeah, we do. So, I mean, he did a lot for the village, and I know for a fact that he laid the sewer and the electricity up our way, up East Avenue. So he did a lot. He was a big man in town. And then after the insurance company, when they dissolved there, then Bob Ullman bought the building, and he worked in Madison for the handicapped kids, and he started a factory up there, and he made like some books and some learning things for the handicapped kids or the slow learners to do their skill, get their skills, and he employed a couple people there.
Miller's store was here, then you went up here, then there was Dutton's at a store, and afterwards, this wasn't a store till later on, Then you went across the street, and the co-op had a store over here too. And Gillish's, people in Gillish's from Maple, they had it for a while. So there were different orders. There were 3 stores at one time, grocery stores at one time. And now I can't even support one.
Oh yeah, this Elmer Dutton sold shoes, and well, it was a general store.
I know Henry Connect started the, where you would go and get your own groceries, a shopping cart, like you do now. When that was unheard of before, I think my mother would call up and they'd get the groceries and you go pick them up. And that's the way Dutton's store was, up on the corner. And then they had the big slaughterhouse and freezer where you could rent a freezer and store all your stuff, because you didn't have freezers at home at that time.
On Spilgreen, he run the store, the co-op store. Yeah.
And then I worked at the grocery store for Knicks for 23 years. And then after that, Harold Haney had a store, so he hired me. I worked for him. I can't recall how many years. Then Kenny and Kate took over the spice store, and then they asked me to work for them yet. So I'm there now, 20-some years by them. The Farmers Exchange was a grocery store, and they had a slaughtering house in the back. And it was very much fun seeing how they butcher the animals and do everything there. And I had to wait on customers behind the meat counter sometimes and cut the pork chops on the scale and put them in everything,
The farmers would bring their eggs in all the time, and that's what they'd buy their groceries with. Sure, they bought all kinds of eggs and had to pay for it. They bought a lot of groceries with those eggs. They probably had to pay the difference, sometimes, but that's...
When Henry come to town and he opened it up, then we had it. From then on, there was a store there. Yeah, and the co-op had a store on the other side for a while. Oh, there used to be a fellow there by the name of Gravo, too. He had a store over there, and he'd drink. He'd get drunk. And you ever hear of the snakes? I don't know, they always said that years ago, if you drink too much, he got the snakes. And flour, you bought that by the bulk. They had a bin that you opened up, and they had a scoop in there, and they'd fill a bag for flour for you that way. And they said he saw snakes in the flour box, and he shot in there with a shotgun. I don't know how true it is, but that's the story that went around.
Yeah, we had 7 taverns in town that time. There was a tavern across the street, the Railroad Tavern over here, they call it the Railroad Depot Tavern, used to be. Yeah. Like the one right across the street from our bowling alley. Guy by the name of Gramke's built it, older people built it, and they called it the Irish Inn. All the salesmen that would come around here, they'd stay in a hotel, it was a hotel. And they'd stay there, that's the deal, yeah. And then our place, of course. Next to us was Click's Tavern. That changed hands I don't know how many times. Tavern on the street of Rolly Schmidt, that changed hands about 15 times. Where's the other one across, right next to the post office in town, there was a tavern there, that was a Bill Green in there, Nibs Bill Green, he was in there. The fish fries on Saturday nights instead of Fridays. Everybody has the fish fry Friday nights. And the only reason we had fish fry on Saturday nights, because the stores were open. Yeah, that's why we had them sign it. My wife would sell, and my dad before that, we'd sell 125, 150 plates of fish at a Saturday night. That was a lot at that time. Now you can fish right anywhere. Every tavern's got something you know they gotta have to be in business. Yeah.
And it was 25, 30 below zero, you know. So we came to town one time here, and I think my dad had called Teddy Handel, and he had the blacksmith shop, and he let him take the horses in there so they could warm up, you know, while the men, there was probably 6 guys or whatever, and I went along, and they all headed for Harry Bill Green's tavern to warm up, you know, and I remember Pa ordered a brandy, and anyway, Harry said to my dad, so what's the boy want, you know, and well, I would have been 9 years old, 10, or whatever. And I said, well, orange soda, you know. And Harry said, oh no, you gotta have something to warm him up. And so Harry said to my dad, is it all right if I give him a little Kimmel? You know, have you ever had Kimmel? It's a caraway seed liqueur. And if you're ever freezing to death, I recommend a shot glass of that, because as God is my witness, you can just feel how you're warming up. And
Grandpa built it, I said 1902, she got it in 1904, well, whatever. My grandpa put the 2 bowling alleys down in the basement. They were in the basement.
Okay.
And then years, I don't know how many years later, my dad put them upstairs, 2 of them. And then they were up there for quite a while. And then we put 2 more alleys on, so we had 4 lanes then. And later on, when Marlene and I bought the place, my wife and I bought the place, then we put the machines in. And we thought we'd never get them paid for $40,000 for those machines those days. And I know the Vorlop boys, that was Depression time when they came that time. And the Vorlop boys just sit in the tavern and wait for people to come and bowl. And only people like bankers and people that had a little money could really afford to bowl. But with bowling at that time would cost, you know, 10 or 15 cents a line. And if you set pins, you got 2.5 cents a line for setting pins. You got 2.5 cents. And later, when we raised it to 15 cents, then they got nickel a line. And I used to set too for nickel a line. We used to get for bowling. If you bowled a line, you know, those 2.5 up there was 15 cents or 10 first and then 15. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a lady that was running a restaurant in there before Bonza bought it.
Okay.
A gal, I don't remember her name, but she had that restaurant going, and he bought it.
It was pretty small then, though.
Oh yeah, it was just a hotel.
Right. Yeah.
In 1972, my dad decided Al belongs behind a bar because he likes to joke. So he says, Al, you belong behind a bar. So just like that, the Young Inn came for sale. So Al went to go see what were the details, and I was way against it because I didn't want to do a lot of work that time. And so Al says, we're buying that tavern. So we went to the bank, and they would borrow us the money, loan us the money. The lady who had it before us was getting elderly, and she wanted to sell. So we got it, and then we started out with 12 dishes, 12 Melmac dishes with purple roses on, and about 2 kettles with a lot of dents in all over the place, and being November, we started booking Christmas parties for December. So we hired a cook, Lydia Shelpfeffer, and she told us we have to have more chairs and more tables to seat people. We only had 6 tables, and all these Christmas parties were coming, so we had to go to Milwaukee to buy more dishes, more wine glasses, more kettles to make all the food in, and chairs. And so I thought we were never going to see out. Started with the one building, and then business got really good, and we needed more room. All of a sudden we needed a walk-in freezer and a walk-in cooler, and because we just had refrigerators before that, and so we had to buy the building next door. And then we kept booking more parties, and it just progressed, and we decided we needed parking for all the people we were coming that were coming. The street wasn't enough, so we bought the apartment building next door to us, and we bulldozed that down, and we made a big parking lot. There was a rooming house upstairs above a tavern before we got it, and we had 3 elderly men stay up there in bedrooms, and every weekend I had to clean these 3 bedrooms and change sheets for these 3 elderly men. Martin Herman was up there, and Bobby Keel's dad was up there, and one other elderly man. And well, I got sick of doing all this cleaning, so we decided to cut the upstairs out and make this living quarters for our family, because right about then we had 4 kids. So our whole family moved up there then when Al made all these bedrooms. Well, we used the bedrooms, and our whole family moved up there then. And the kids were small, but then we were right with the business, and the kids liked it real much. They ran around up there, and sometimes Al would have to yell up, "You kids, be quiet, there's people eating down here." All your footsteps would be heard in the whole dining room. Julie decided that the old Iron Ridge Inn had a lot of things that weren't up to code. So her and Jeff decided that they were going to build a new place because they could bring everything up to code. More bathrooms, no steps, no ramps. And so they had decided, they planned this restaurant together, and they went and built the new Iron Ridge Inn on the property that was the old welding shop, Teddy Handel's old building, and the old laundromat, and so they decided to build a new restaurant there, and which meant we had the demolition of the old restaurant.
And then Bill Green's Tavern, but Mrs. Bill Green had a little, as you went up the steps, the door here went into the tavern and the bowling alley and whatever. And then there was another door over here. There was a little, we call it a drugstore, but it was over-the-counter stuff. She probably had some kind of quacky stuff that the people, did it in those days. And they had ice cream, Sessions ice cream, 5 cents a cone.
There was a Dr. Herman from Milwaukee. He'd come out here all the time.
Really?
And I remember what he did. I can't remember if he was just a baby doctor or what, I don't, but it was a Dr. Herman in there after that. And then my mother took it over, and then she put a variety store in there, like little toys and all stuff like that. She all junk that kids would be able to come in, Yeah.
Did she sell drugs too?
Huh?
Drugs?
Like aspirins, that she couldn't fill prescriptions.
Right.
That she couldn't do.
And our little drugstore, that was a neat place. Yeah.
What did y'all have there?
She had like, you could buy thread and needles, and she had everything from A to Z. I mean, just stuff that if you ran out of something that you didn't have to, run to Mayville or Beaver Dam or Hartford, and you could just go up there and, oh yeah, she'd look for it.
Litke's had a pond that's east of town. That's where they made the ice. No, they didn't make the ice, they cut it and hauled it to Iron Ridge into the ice house. Harry Bilgreen,
Okay.
he had an ice house full of sawdust. That's where they packed the ice in. And it lasted all summer long.
And what they just stored ice for what?
For anybody that wanted it, in the tavern,
Okay.
Green's Tavern, and the store. That was the way of cooling things. Today you got refrigeration. In them days we didn't have it yet when I was a kid. You had ice. And they cut it out there by on the Litke farm by Geraldine and Pumfoos, where she lives. That's where the ice come from. Yeah, I think always too. Don't recall that they ever brought it. But I don't know whether I should tell you this, but like along the rivers, years ago, there was no sewage system in the towns, and anybody that lived along the river, they had their privy on the river, halfway, see? This one fellow told me, he says, when you'd go, the carpet be down below. Well, anyhow, that's where they had it. And Teresa anybody that lived along the river had an outhouse down by the river. And in Mayville, they cut the ice in the wintertime. And I bet they used it in their drinks too. When you think of that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the way it was done.
Mm-hmm.
My dad had built a big shed. He had cars in the bottom of it, 2 of them, and at one end he had chickens, and the chicken them were at that end. I'd raise pigeons upstairs. Stayed there, holes in there, and then the other side upstairs, that was all ice house. My dad used to go out to Crusher Pond with Nita, and then I'd go along with him too. We'd go to salt ice like that, and put it on a trailer in the truck, and drive how many trips you made, filled it up to the top for all summer, could use it all summer, yeah.
How did it stay cold?
Put sawdust in between it. You put a layer of ice, and just put sawdust all around. Another layer of ice, sawdust all around, till it was up to the top. And it stayed that way all summer. Yeah.
Quackenbush. Oh yeah, Quackenbush. He was a nice doctor. He was a very nice doctor, yeah. My father-in-law had him for his ulcerated legs. He was very good, yeah. He was.
My dad made his first examination table when they were living in the hotel. Doc went to school and graduated from medical school at Northwestern and came here.
Procedures, good evening.
Well, he delivered all the babies here.
3 of them.
in,
Tim, not Tim. But
Well, no, I mean
Oh.
in the county.
Yeah.
From here to, and he had an office in Neosho then eventually, but he delivered. But he was a country doctor that did everything. I mean, he would set a broken bone and sew up. He was a very good sewer. He sewed up one girl's face had a car accident, and she wrote back to him years later and said the plastic surgeons that worked on her, he said, whoever did an excellent job when he sewed you up. So I mean, he was. But you just walk up those big steps above the bank building there, and just nobody. You didn't even take a number. You just sat there, and you knew who you were behind or whatever, and you might sit there for an hour and a half. Who knows?
No appointment necessary?
No. You didn't have an appointment. And you have an office in Hartford.
Yeah, and you get paid with chickens.
So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Sure.
chickens.
A horse.
Horse,
You got a
yeah.
horse once. You got some chickens. Yeah. You get paid with whatever they had.
Wow. Can't do that today.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
So I mean, he was an old-fashioned doctor, you know. When he told you it was going to hurt like hell, it did hurt like hell.
And Quackenbush, of course, he had the business. He was up above the bank. And he had a good business. And of course, from Iron Ridge, he had people in the hospital. They'd have to go to Hartford. And then eventually he closed his office in Iron Ridge and had his office in Hartford. Yeah. He was a good doctor. But the women didn't like him. His hands were too big. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And Doc was with the people. He belonged to the fire company. And he'd come to the meeting, and we'd have bologna after the meeting, you know, and he'd take a bologna and he'd cut the string, and then he'd break it, and then he'd cut the bologna, slice it and peel it like a banana and eat it. After he was in Hartford, I was to see him one day, and I says, "Remember the bologna you used to eat at the firemen's meeting?" "Yeah," he says, "you know, you can't get bologna like that today anymore." That was Frank Mollauer's bologna. That was good sausage.
That Dr. Heinrich, his name was, he's from Mayville. Then he'd come down here, when you went to the old bank up there, you walked up the steps. If you walked to the left, you went to the dentist office. You walked to the right, you went to Dr. Quackenbush. Yeah, so he used to come down here with the drill, you know, like the drill with a paddle. He had a paddle till we got stuck in there too, so it's all the way to get out. That's as far as that goes. Candy factory down there, everybody knows that, yeah.
How long was that there for?
Oh, that was a long time. A guy by the name of Westphal had it. He put it up. Then when he was left here, he put a big home up in Hartford. The home was still there, and they refurnished it, still sitting there.
Oh.
Yeah, and then Voss from Hustlesford, he owns Hustlesford Candy Factory. Then he bought this one, Voss. That went quite a while, and then afterward, then the wood factory came in.
Then there was the canning factory.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 16 years old, I was the superintendent of it.
Really?
Because during the war, Lefty Nicius was the guy who ran the place during the PPAC. And they actually let him out of the army 1 year to come home and run this, and then he had to go back again. And the next year they wouldn't let him out. And so I ended up running the canning factory.
Oh, in 1986, people kept asking Al, well, we would stay, we wish you had rooms for rent, that we could stay a little longer in Iron Ridge. And travelers going through said, boy, we wish there was a motel here. So Al decided to build the Iron Ridge Motel in 1986. And so we did that. And we started out with 12 rooms. And we were booked very, very much. And so we added on 8 more rooms. Yep, 8 more rooms we added on. and that gave us 20 rooms. And it's still going strong.
And it always had a pool? Right from the
Oh, we
beginning?
had a pool right from the beginning. Yeah, we decided, Alphonse decided, nobody has a pool around, so we should build a motel with a pool. And of course, our kids fell for that.
Yeah, my grandfather lived over by the cheese factory.
Where was the cheese factory?
Well, you know where it goes up to the water tower?
Mm-hmm.
Well, down below the hill. You know where Bunny and Marion live?
Mm-hmm.
Across the street.
How long was that there for?
Well, that's, let me see, in Rex Weigert. No, there was Stempfley come and he opened the cheese factory. And Rex Weigert worked for him. And then Rex, he bought it from Stempfley then. He continued to make cheese there. And his wife was my former neighbor. And they made Limburger.
Rex Swigert was the last guy that had it. He was in there a long time. Before it was Stempfley. Stempfley is the Swiss guy. I think he built it. I'm not sure, but I almost think he built it, yeah.
I actually lived out on the cheese factory, a mile and a half, corner of Astor Road in Illinois. And I lived there until I was 18. My brother made cheese till 1953. And my dad bought it in 1919.
In which I bought some of the land back from Julie and Jeff to put up my dream of custard stand. I had it 4.5 years. I was getting older and decided to, but I liked it. I loved the people and the kids in town, and then I sold it.
Oh, then Rosie Westfall, she had her ice cream custard stand. I forgot about that. And then you know what? I used to go every night after supper to have a cone, and I'd sit in the car and listen to the Hartford station with the polkas. And Linda was there that one night, and I said, Linda, come here once. I turned the radio loud, and she started to jiggle on the sidewalk. Linda, Linda Westfall. Oh, that was something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They were nice people, Rosie and Al and them all, you know.
So you went to the Maple Grove School?
Yep, all 8 grades, you know, were in the one room. There was maybe, we had 5 or 6 in our class, 7, I don't know. No, it was 2 rooms. The 2 rooms are, because we played, you know, on a rainy day we play in there, because it was just one great big room, hardwood floor, and ceilings were too short for basketball, but I think we had a small hoop in there or something, and ran around. Outhouses. And then they finally put, maybe when I was 5th or 6th grade, they had some kind of indoor, they didn't have water out there. I mean, we probably had a well, I don't know.
Did you have a fire? Did you have to put wood in the fire?
Yeah, they had to, you know, I don't know about wood, maybe it was oil.
Okay.
Maybe they had a big oil burner in the corner of and we would heat our hot lunches in a jar, you know, and you put them up over by that fire to heat them up for in your lunch bucket. And I remember picking, this had to be in the early 40s during the war, going and picking milkweed pods for the life jackets for the Navy, or whoever, yeah. We'd go every spring, we'd get onion bags, you know, and you'd fill them with milkweed pods when they were just ready to pop.
Wow.
I think all the schools did that.
Then you sent them to the Navy?
Then somebody come pick them up, you know, and they put them in their life jackets for the Navy.
And then from the church up here, I remember that yet when we were kids, we had a march the last day of school. That day was a picnic, so we marched from the school down the main street, and we walked all the way down to the dance hall, and then we'd have put on plays and stuff like that. I don't know. Yeah, it was kind of deal.
One time we had a bad snowstorm on Sunday. That shows you how my parents thought education was important. We had a terrible snowstorm on Sunday, and so Sunday night, my dad said to my brother, "You make like a backpack for Marvin." "Oh yeah? Why for me?" "Because tomorrow morning you're going to ski to Iron Ridge so you can catch the train so you can go to school." And I did.
We would sled ride on, that time was the Water Tower Hill, the old hill, and you could go all the way from there, all the way down under the viaduct. You mean, you know, right down 67, and we'd sled all the way down.
Weren't you scared cars were gonna
Well, we'd close off there was a cheese factory right back there on the bottom of on the back street, and we'd have somebody stopping cars down there. There wasn't that much traffic, but then we'd have to watch when we got up to 67 way.
Okay.
But we could sled quite a ways there. Most of the time we didn't. We'd stop at Dutton's store probably on the corner.
Okay.
Now there was a Merle Handel got ran over twice.
You got ran over?
Twice right in Main Street here and once down the hill. With a sled, he's going to sled. He got right, he never died. He's still living today. Merle's a year younger than I am.
Who is that?
Merle Handel. You know Merle Handel?
Mm-mm.
The dad of the blacksmith shop there?
Did you guys ever go sledding here in town in the winter?
Yeah, by the library, the big hill, we like to go sledding on that. And then we make big bumps, and then my dad pushes us down the hill, and I go on the bumps.
Roller skating in the town hall. They would have music and, well, I'm sure it was records, but there was, we'd roller skate when we were in grade school, I remember that.
I understand that Julia Schultz wanted a band. He wanted a city band, you know, and I don't know, somebody said he had kind of limited the clientele to form that band, and then found out that he didn't have enough people, so he opened it up and it was just, you know, let's start a band. And somebody hired this Bill Mochmiller from West Bend, and I remember we came down to the firehouse, and either firehouse or the city hall, village hall, and Bill sat at a table, and you walked up to the table, and well, I want to play in a band, and he'd take a look at you, and when my dad and my brother and I walked in, I was, again, I was short, you know, and my brother was a 6-footer and weighed 240 pounds or whatever, and Bill looked at me and he said, "You're going to play alto," and looked at my brother and he said, "You're going to play a tuba." And he did that with, I mean, our people played trombone and baritone and whatever, and he picked them, and then we started like Harold Hill, you know, da, da, just played the scale over and over and over. And we came to be, I think, a very excellent band.
Yeah, it's a good band. That went with the fire company then, you know. I'd go to the picnics and so forth. That worked hand in hand.
And we played for church picnics at St. Matthew's and from Crippling Christi up there. And we had concerts on Main Street and in front of Harry Bilgreen's Tavern. Teddy Handel and some of the guys built a wagon that would kind of fold up and whatever on an old truck chassis, and they pulled that there and set it up, and there were lights on it and whatever. And we'd have, I don't remember, it was Wednesday night or whatever, and we had band concerts here in the summertime. Probably play for 8 weeks or something like that.
There used to be a program or band played Wednesday nights. They had a platform in front of Belgreen's, out into the street, and that's where the band would be on. People would come from all over and listen to the band play. Oh yeah, and Bunny Ehrlich and his brother, they'd put on a boxing exhibition.
Like the Anovich boys and the boys from Mayville, they were rough boys those years ago. And they used to have boxing matches. They boxed on the bandstand up. The band got off of there. 1 week they'd park on that side of the street, one week they'd park in front of our place, you know. Then they had what they called a chivalry band. 15, 20 guys out of that would go when people got married. They'd play and make all kinds of noise. They'd rap on bars and everything else till the couple came out that got married, and then they'd give them so much money for a keg of beer and some roast and some lunch.
Quite often in the winter times, there's these show people that come. They'd have a play they'd put on. They'd be in town the whole week, and they'd have a show every night, right on stage, vaudeville, and we'd walk to town. My brother, Alvin Ringel, and I, we'd walk to town at that vaudeville, and we'd sit up on the balcony. Yeah, there's no balcony there anymore. All the local men, and the woman was sweating. And there was one woman, she was the director. She traveled through the country. She put that on for fire companies, you know. And they had a good time. I can still remember Hugo Owens. He was the preacher. And, well, there was a wedding, you see, and Eddie Andrus, he did not live in Iron Ridge, he lived in Neosho. He was the bride. He's a big, heavy-set guy. Owens a little shorty. He was the husband getting married to her. Oh, it was hilarious. Then Hugo Owens with his round plug hat on, and he had a chew in the mouth, and then he had a spit tool, you know, a cuspidor. And then he had a spit once in a while, and then the sound effect that was too late. and the people would laugh, you know. Yeah, but we had some good times.
The dance hall, you've been in Zifco's? That other? Okay, it was built the same way, round like that, but only maybe a little better than half size or 3/4 size it was. Yeah, that used to be dance hall there, down right in Iron Ridge there.
And how often would they have a dance?
Well, they had wedding dances and stuff like that, and they had regular dances. And then, if they had called town hall players, they put on plays in there and everything else. And then they had drawings nights. We went on there.
And there was Falcus Hall, which isn't there anymore. That's where the pumping station is. That was the dance hall, that whole area there. It was a nice round dance hall. And I remember when I joined the fire company, that was still standing. I sold tickets to get in there to dances. Oh yeah. Then the lights would go out. We won't go any further. Oh yeah, we had good times.
Around dance hall.
Well, that was down where the fire company is now. And that was all woods. There was all big trees down there, big maple trees. We had an ice skating rink in there, down in there that they would flood way back. There again, it was when I was in grade school.
Was ready? Okay, the farmers would bring their pigs and their little calves and all the stuff to town, and then the pig buyers would come and they'd be in town here. Like Staubley brothers, their brothers, and there's maybe 6, 7 pig buyers. Instead of these pig buyers going to the farm, they went to the farmers too and picked up stuff all week by the farmers. But instead, they brought all the stuff in, and boy, pig buyers, they'd sit in the tavern, they'd look out the window. As soon as a farmer came to town with something in the back, and out they'd go. Whoever paid the most for them, they bought to the farmer, sold to them, yeah.
Gotcha.
And that was Saturday then. Yeah, and every tavern had free lunch and chili and stuff like that.
People that bring piglets, little pigs, and then these Jews that come from, or pig dealers, shouldn't call them Jews. They'd come from Milwaukee, they'd buy them. And of course then they'd go to people that fed them out and raised them, And the farmers bring their pigs down there, or if you had a boar to sell, I'll never forget that when somebody brought a boar down there to sell. And I looked that boar over good, and did he have lice in the ears? And I'll never forget Jack Getzinger come walking down the street, and those lice were that big. And I picked one up here, Jack. I says, "You want one? You should have seen him go." Yeah. That fair day, that went over pretty good for a while. People would bring in whatever they wanted to sell. Whether it was honey or sausage or home brew. They didn't sell the whole brew though.
Okay, you know where Iron Gin is now? Mm-hmm. Okay, where Iron Gin is now? That used to be a Stelmacher lumber company, and there was a lot in between there, and there's a big open space there. And then the the post office used to be right next to that. That's where the post office was. And then Wednesday nights when they had fair day like that, where that paper is, they'd have free movies. You'd sit on the ground or on a chair, and in a big lot there,
Invited to Kluge's for a New Year's Eve dinner. Us and the card club, Al and I and the whole card club. And we were just going to start to eat, and the big siren went off. And so everybody looked out the window, and then we all saw smoke gushing out of the Farmers Exchange store. And so we didn't get to eat because some of them in the card club were firemen. And I think Bobby Keel was the chief, and so he really had to get over there and help fight that fire. So the whole dinner sat at the table. It was a great big dinner, and none of us could eat it because the fire started. And so I do remember there was an animal, some cats in the fire, but they got, the firemen rescued one of them, and it brought it over to Kluge's house, and we had a blow dryer on it because it was 20 below zero or whatever it was. It was very cold. The icicles were hanging from the men's beards even as they fought the fire. Yeah, and they did come into the Iron Ridge Inn to warm up, the old Iron Ridge Inn. They were in there to warm up in between because it was so beastly cold.
Oh, the fire from the store? Oh, that was sad, yeah, we were all crying. That was sad, yeah. We came, Tim Kuhn would work there, and then I came And we stood by the old post office and watching it, you know, and everything.
It was New Year's Eve. And New Year's Day. Yeah, my wife and I were just ready. We always go to Pyramid every New Year's Day. We meet all the tavern keepers there. All the taverns meet at the Pyramid. So I went outside to get the car ready, bring her out to the front and warm her up. I thought, geez, it's awful cloudy down in the basement there. I said, look like the windows are all fogged up. I figured frozen up, you know. That's what I figured, you know. Never thought nothing of it. Onions was falling there too with the snow. Anyway, I went around, got the car out, let her warm up a while. I said, well, you ready? So Marlene and I, we took off. Went to the Pyramid. We were out to the Pyramid, I bet you, half an hour. Phone rang. Here's my daughter call up. Dad, you better come home. The grocery store is burning next door to us. So we couldn't order nothing. Away we came home. Jesus. And they always give me hell because I ran the house quick. I got wooden boxes. I had them full of money. Not all full, but I had a lot of money in those boxes. I'd keep hauling that goddamn boxes in the trunk of my car. Everybody said, right there, it's all of his money. Yeah. Yeah, and then I thought sure our place was going too. Upstairs because they kept spraying the side of the building all the time. You know, they kept spraying and spraying so that wouldn't catch fire. They had to tear all the curtains off up there and everything else, you know.
But then, you know, when the picnics were, then we always had to bring everything in. We hauled cement blocks from Stellmucker and planks for people to sit on down in the park. And get the different tents and put things up. Well, now, then later on, you see, when we had some money, then they built the building where you got the ice cream stand in and all that. And that made it a lot easier. You didn't have to put that all up. There was a lot of effort went into all that. And there's still a lot of effort put in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyhow, one year we had it on Main Street, the picnic.
Oh, yeah?
Right up in front of Alexa's house in the village hall. And then one year it was in back of what is now Hanny's establishment there, in the back there. What's in there next to Belgrade South, the other side of the alley?
Oh, P.S. Seasonings?
Yeah, and back there we had picnic.
Really?
That used to be an apple orchard.
Well, they had the dance hall there, of course. Then they had another building there. You had to take a leak outside if you wanted to go way to back in. That I remember. Yeah. Then they had a little brick concrete slab down there, and the Irish band was playing there.
Okay.
And Stelmer's lumber company came right up to that, way up back there. Then and the dance hall there. Then they had the outside, you could open the doors to the outside. And right there, Joe Schmidt used to fry hamburgers in that corner to bring your beer right up to the counter there. Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
And then Mickey and I used to go down to butter the bread for the chicken dinner. And then when the parade was, we went up by Lexa's lawn and sat on her lawn. And then when the parade was over, we quick went down to the park and had our dinner down there, you know, the chicken. That was very good, very good. But now we don't butter no bread no more. You get the little butter, and crippled people can't even open that butter with their bad fingers.
Go on any rides at the Iron Ridge picnic?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what?
The hammer. That spinny one. I don't know.
Spinny one.
Teacups.
Teacups?
There's not the teacups, but it's kind of like the teacups.
Spinny one?
Yeah.
What about the parade?
I'm gonna be in the fire truck honking the horn. I've been in the fire truck and we saw our friends and we hunt the horn. She's gonna be on the float and throwing candy at the kids and stuff.
What do you know about the Iron Ridge
picnic?
It is a fun place to hang out. You can play games. You could go on rides, play in the sandbox, eat lots of, or you can eat ice cream, lots of awesome food. It's a good place to stay. The parade is awesome. You get candy, free candy, but your parents don't let you eat it that much. But you still get a lot of candy. You get to see tractors, your cousins on the parade.
But I don't know, it seemed like I liked the old atmosphere better.
Yeah.
But what you gonna do?
Yeah.
Times change.
And a good life. And I'm glad I grew up, well, not in Iron Ridge, but Iron Ridge had a big influence on
I love being living in Iron Ridge. I don't, I've been here since 1954, and I've lived here longer than I did in my where I grew up. When I was born, it's unbelievable. But yeah, I wouldn't trade living any place else.
What do you think makes it so special?
The people, for one thing. The people are, they're so friendly. They were from the time we moved here in 1954. Your neighbors were all your best friends, always. And now the subdivision, Westgate, oh my gosh, these people are, they're fabulous.
Oh yeah, we had good times.
Yeah.
Sweetheart.
No, it wasn't.
2 gophers.
Oh. And it tipped over one time, right?
That I don't remember, but then I remember that guy tipped over. He should have tipped his head over. Walt, you know him, Walt?
I know him.
You know Walt?
Sure.
Get out of here, we're busy. Get out of here. Get out of here, we're busy.
You just played in the yard. You didn't do anything
No,
in town.
we played in the yard. Yep, we never knew what a tavern was like that because we were like 6 and 7 years old.
I always wanted to get hit by a car down the parade.
Well, they stopped the cars from coming down the road.
I know still. But, yeah, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Wash all the windows and clean it and everything. The bank too. Then when I came to cleaning the bank, they showed me where the revolver was under the shelf. I was kind of nervous. I would never be able to do that, to shoot somebody.
I was in on several plays, but they were for the Ladies' Aid. Yeah. I know I had to make love to Tori Redlin on the stage.
And here we were sitting on the Davenport by the fireplace, having hot dogs about 3 days in a row or 4 days in a row probably, because we had no electricity and until we got to hook up with the generator next door. That was one for a divorce, I guess.
What does your dad do in Iron Ridge?
He's a fireman, the fire chief at Iron Ridge
Yeah.
Fire Department. He's a cop too.
You want another baby? Get in here.
And I used to march. I didn't march very often, though. Then they'd come with a case of cold beer after the parade, and then I'd feel miserable. we won't go into that. We might get into trouble. I can tell you that when you haven't got that turned on.
Okay.